The sun was slipping down behind the western hills when Ethan Cole finished his work for the day. The sky glowed soft orange, fading into deep purple, and long shadows stretched across the quiet land. His small ranch sat far from towns, far from noise, and far from company. For most people, such silence would feel heavy, but for Ethan, it was normal. He had grown used to living alone ever since his parents passed away and left the ranch in his care. He brushed the dust off his hat, washed his hands with cool water from the barrel, and stepped inside his wooden cabin. The air smelled of old pine, warm firewood, and the stew he had cooked an hour earlier. He planned to eat, rest, and sleep early. There was nothing else to do. Life moved slowly, here cows to feed, fences to check, horses to calm, and the endless desert wind whispering every night. He had no reason to expect this evening would be any different, but then he heard it. A faint sound, soft footsteps outside the door. Not heavy like a man's, not quick like a coyote's, and not cautious like a snake slithering across the ground. They were gentle footsteps, almost hesitant, as if someone was unsure about approaching. Ethan froze for a moment. Visitors were rare out here, and unexpected footsteps were even rarer. He set his bowl aside and slowly walked to the door. His hand rested lightly on the wooden frame, not out of fear, but out of habit. When you lived alone on open land, caution became part of your nature. He opened the door, standing outside. Framed by the dim light of dusk was a young Apache girl. She looked around 18 or 19. Her long black hair fell messy over her shoulders, tangled with dust from travel. Her clothes, simple, worn, yet carefully tied, showed signs of a long journey. Her cheeks were slightly red from the dry wind, and her eyes dark, wide. Tired held a mixture of fear and determination. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The land around them was completely silent, except for the soft rustling of the wind. Then she finally looked up at him and whispered in a shaky voice, "Please, let me stay tonight." Then blinked, surprised. The request was sudden and unexpected. In all his years living here, no stranger, especially not an Apache girl, had ever come to his door asking to stay the night. He slowly studied her face. She was exhausted, hungry, and trembling slightly, but she kept standing tall, trying to hold her dignity despite her condition. She wasn't injured, but she looked like someone who had been walking for miles without rest. Ethan stepped aside gently. "You can come in," he said quietly. She hesitated for half a second, searching his face as if making sure he meant no harm. When she stepped inside, she moved carefully, almost respectfully, as though entering someone's home was a big decision. Ethan paused at the doorway for a moment, scanning the dark horizon to see if anyone else was nearby. But the land remained empty. Inside the cabin, warmth wrapped around her. She looked around the small room, taking in the simple wooden furniture, the fire crackling in the stone hearth, and the smell of stew. Ethan noticed the way her shoulders relaxed slightly, as if the warmth itself brought her comfort. He poured water into a cup and handed it to her without saying much. She drank slowly, almost afraid to take too much, but grateful for every sip. After a moment, she spoke again, her voice soft. "My name is Nayeli." Ethan nodded. "I'm Ethan." They didn't shake hands. She simply touched her fingers lightly to her chest, a quiet sign of respect from her culture. Ethan understood her politeness, even if he didn't fully know the customs. He motioned toward a chair, and she sat down carefully, as though still unsure if she was truly welcome. Ethan served her a bowl of warm stew and watched as she ate with slow, controlled bites, never rushing, never wasting even a drop. She carried herself with discipline, something that impressed him. After she finished, Ethan sat across from her. "You're far from your people," he said gently. "Is something wrong?" Nayeli lowered her eyes. Her fingers brushed the edge of the table, nervously tracing the wood grain. Her silence stretched long enough to show she didn't want to speak about it. Finally, she said, "I got separated from them." Her tone suggested there was more to the story, but she wasn't ready to share it. "And you've been walking alone?" Ethan asked. She nodded slowly. "Since yesterday morning, so far?" He asked softly again. She nodded. Ethan didn't ask more. He could see the weight she carried. He knew what fear looked like, and he could sense she had been facing it alone for too long. He gave her a blanket and pointed to the spot near the fire where she could rest. The firelight painted warm colors on her face, softening the tired lines, but her eyes still carried quiet worry, as if she expected danger to arrive at any moment. "I won't disturb anything," she said quietly, folding her hands neatly in her lap. "I just need a night of safety." "You're safe here," Ethan said. Nayeli looked at him with cautious disbelief, as though she wasn't used to kindness from strangers. She finally lay down near the fire, pulling the blanket over her shoulders. Ethan sat on the opposite side of the room, giving her space. At first, she kept her eyes open, watching the door, the windows, and even Ethan himself. It was clear she didn't fully trust her surroundings yet. But as minutes passed, the warmth eased into her bones. The crackling fire soothed her nerves, and slowly her eyes grew heavy. Ethan watched quietly. He noticed the small tremble in her hands, the way her breathing slowed only after many minutes, and the slight frown she wore, even in sleep, as if some memory still troubled her. He wondered who she had been running from, or what she had seen, or why she preferred to sleep on hard wooden floor rather than a bed. She didn't seem like someone weak or helpless. She had a quiet strength, a stillness born from survival. Ethan sensed she was used to facing difficult days without complaint. The hours passed slowly. The desert wind outside blew soft against the walls, carrying the distant howl of coyotes and the rustle of dry grass. Ethan didn't sleep much. He stayed awake, tending the fire and making sure the cabin stayed warm. For some reason, he felt responsible for her safety. Near midnight, Nayeli stirred. She sat up quickly, breathing fast as though waking from a bad dream. Ethan turned toward her. "You're all right," he said softly. "Just a dream." She pressed a hand against her chest, trying to steady her breathing. "I didn't mean to wake you," she whispered. "You didn't," he replied. She looked into the fire for a long moment, the flames reflecting in her tired eyes. Then she said quietly, "It's strange. I don't know you, but I feel safer here than I have in many days." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He simply nodded. The rest of the night passed quietly. Nayeli slept deeper this time, the exhaustion finally coming out of her bones. Ethan kept watch until dawn painted the room with soft, pale light. When she woke, he was already preparing breakfast: simple bread, warm water, and leftover stew. Nayeli sat up, looking healthier than before. She thanked him gently, almost shyly, and ate with calm gratitude. Only after she finished did she speak again. "You did not have to let me in," she said softly. "Most men would not," Ethan shrugged lightly. "Most men aren't out here." A small smile tugged at the corner of her lips, sad, tired, but genuine. She stood slowly, looking around the cabin as if memorizing its calmness. Outside, the world was bright again, full of challenges waiting for her. But for one night she had found warmth, food, and a roof to rest under. A night she desperately needed. Ethan had no idea that letting her stay would change anything. But as Nayeli looked at him, her eyes clearer now, he felt a quiet shift inside himself, like the beginning of a story he didn't see coming, and without knowing it, the journey for both of them had already begun. The first light of morning settled gently over the ranch as Ethan stepped outside to check the horses. The air was crisp, cool, and calm. A few birds called out from the nearby mesquite trees, and the land spread wide like an endless brown-gold ocean. It was a peaceful morning, but inside the cabin, Nayeli was still waking up slowly, her tired body finally enjoying a full night of undisturbed sleep. When Ethan returned, he found her sitting near the fire, folding the blanket he had given her with careful hands. She treated the blanket as if it were made of something precious. Perhaps, Ethan thought, safety itself was precious to her. "You don't have to rush," he said with a gentle tone. Nayeli looked up at him. Her dark eyes held quiet gratitude. "You have been kind. I don't want to trouble you more." "It's no trouble," Ethan replied. "You needed rest." She nodded, but he could see she was still tense about something. Her fingers fidgeted slightly, twisting the cloth of the blanket. There was a story behind her fear. Ethan felt it growing inside the silence. After breakfast, Naili helped wash dishes without being asked. She moved with practiced skill, almost like someone raised to do much work from a young age. She was not used to being idle. Ethan watched her for a moment. "You're welcome to stay longer if you need," he said. Her hands paused just a second. She looked at him, surprised. "I only asked for one night," she said quietly. "I know," he replied, "but it seems like you still need help." Naili lowered her eyes, struggling for words. She wanted to appear strong, but exhaustion, fear, and worry still clung to her. Finally, she whispered, "I lost someone." Ethan did not rush her. He waited calmly. Nay took a deep breath and continued. "My younger brother. We were traveling with our group. A storm came suddenly. Dust everywhere. I couldn't see anything. When the wind slowed, I couldn't find him." She closed her eyes briefly, fighting back the emotion. "I searched for him all night," she said softly. "But the land is large, and I was alone." Ethan felt a knot in his chest. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "He might have found people from your group." She shook her head. Maybe not. But I must search for him. He's only a boy." Ethan understood the weight behind her words. A young boy lost in the open desert. The thought was too painful. "Then let me help you," Ethan said. Naili looked up quickly, almost startled. "Help me?" she echoed. "Yes," Ethan answered simply. "I know this land well. I know the safe paths, the riverbeds, the places people hide when storms come. We can find him." Naili stared at him unsure. She had grown up learning that settlers and Apache people rarely work together. No. But Ethan showed no hesitation, no hidden intention, only kindness. "Why would you help me?" she whispered. "Because no one should search alone," Ethan replied. "Not here. Not with what's roaming this land lately." "What do you mean?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. He didn't want to frighten her, but she needed to know. "I saw tracks last night, horse tracks, deep ones. Not from your people." Naili's eyes widened slightly. She looked toward the window, as if expecting to see danger right away. "There are men wandering these lands," Ethan continued. "Men who don't follow rules. They've been riding close to ranches, trying to steal horses or supplies." Naili swallowed hard. "I know those men," she said in a faint voice. "They came near our camp before. They scared everyone." "Then you understand why I don't want you wandering alone," Ethan said softly. Naili nodded, her fear mixing with determination. "Thank you," she said quietly. "If you are willing, I will accept your help." Ethan gave a small nod. "We'll leave after gathering supplies. First, let's make sure the ranch stays safe." For the next few hours, Naili helped Ethan prepare. She collected dried meat, filled water pouches, and packed cloth for shade. Ethan set the saddle on his horse, checked the rope, and prepared tools for tracking. As they worked side by side, they learned more about each other. Ethan discovered that Naili had grown up close to nature. She knew how to read plants, how to find water in dry places, and how to follow faint signs left by moving animals. Her eyes were sharp, her steps steady. Naili learned that Ethan had lived alone for years, taking care of the ranch with his own hands. He wasn't a loud or boastful man. He was calm, patient, and quietly strong. Noticed how he paid attention to small details, how he tied things securely, how he checked each item twice, how he planned ahead. When everything was ready, they stepped outside. The sun was higher now, spreading bright light across the land. Before getting on the horse, Naili paused. She looked back at the cabin, the place that had protected her for one night, the place where she had found unexpected kindness. "Thank you," she said again, her voice soft but sincere. "You're welcome." Ethan replied with a gentle nod. They traveled slowly across the plains, following the path Naili had taken before. She pointed out the direction she had come from, and Ethan used his knowledge of the land to guide them. The desert stretched wide, but it wasn't empty. There were tracks, plants, signs of movement, things only trained eyes could notice. The air was warm. The light breeze kept them cool. Sky remained open and clear, giving no sign of another storm. After an hour of riding, Nayeli suddenly stiffened. "Stop," she whispered. Ethan pulled the reins gently, and the horse slowed. Nayeli slid off and knelt on the ground. She touched the sand lightly with her fingers. "Here," she said. Small footprint. Ethan looked. The print was faint, but real. "Your brother?" he asked. Nayeli nodded. "I think so. He has small feet. And he walks with a little turn on the right side." Ethan admired her careful observation. The footprint pointed toward a dry riverbed, so they followed it. As they walked, Nayeli found more signs: broken twigs, a disturbed patch of grass, even a torn piece of cloth caught on a bush. With each new sign, her hope grew. But Ethan also noticed something troubling. Mixed with the small footprints were other marks. Deeper ones, heavier ones, horse tracks, and not just one horse, 3 or 4. Nayeli noticed them too. Her breath grew tight. "Those men," she whispered. Ethan gently touched her shoulder. "We don't know yet. The tracks could be older." But Nayeli could feel something cold settling in her stomach. The tracks were too fresh, too close. They continued carefully. Ethan rode with Nayeli walking beside him, her eyes scanning the land with intense concentration. After some time, they reached a small hill. Ethan stopped and helped Nayeli climb up beside him. From the top, the view spread: wide trees, rocks, dry riverbeds, distant ridges. Ethan squinted, scanning for movement, then Nayeli pointed suddenly. "There," she said quickly. "Smoke." A thin line of smoke rose from behind a cluster of rocks some distance away. "It could be my brother," she said, hope and fear mixing in her voice. Ethan nodded. "We'll go slowly. We don't know who else might be there." They made their way down the hill and approached carefully. As they got closer, they moved quietly. Even the horse seemed to understand the need for silence. The smell of smoke grew stronger. Nallie's heartbeat quickened. Ethan held out a hand, signaling her to stay back a little. "Let me look first," he whispered. He moved ahead, crouching low as he approached the rocks. The fire was small and controlled. Someone had built it recently, but he didn't see a child. He listened carefully. Silence, then dash crunch. Soft footsteps. Behind another rock, Nayeli gasped quietly. Ethan stepped in front of her protectively. A small figure appeared, a boy around 10, with messy hair and frightened eyes. His clothes were dusty, and his face showed exhaustion. But he was alive. Nayeli's breath broke into a soft sound of relief. "Little brother," she cried in a whisper. The boy turned, eyes widening. "Nayeli." She ran to him, dropping to her knees, pulling him into a tight embrace. The boy clung to her, shaking with relief and fear blending together. Ethan stepped back, giving them space. For a long moment, Nayeli held her brother close, whispering soft words in her language, comforting, soothing, thanking the spirits for keeping him safe. When she finally looked up at Ethan, her eyes shined with grateful tears. "You found him," she said softly. "You helped me," Ethan shook his head gently. "You found him, only followed your lead." But before relief fully settled in, the boy spoke quickly, fear in his voice. "Men came. I hid." Nayeli stiffened. "Men?" The boy nodded. "Bad men. Not from our people." Ethan exchanged a tense look with Nayeli. The danger was real, close. "We need to leave," Ethan said calmly but firmly. "We can't stay here." Nayeli held her brother's hand tightly. "Yes, but where will we go?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Back to the ranch. It's safer than open ground. After that, we figure out what to do." Nayeli nodded, trusting him completely now. They started moving, but Ethan kept a close eye on the land behind them. He had a feeling they were not alone. The tracks, the smoke. The boy's fear at all pointed to one thing: the trouble Nayeli feared was catching up, and the quiet rancher who had simply opened his door to a lost girl now found himself standing between her, the danger hunting her family. Their journey back would not be as peaceful as the journey here. Something was coming. Something they would have to face together. The land was quiet when Ethan and Nayeli, her little brother, started their journey back toward the ranch. But the quiet did not bring peace. It felt heavy, tense, as if the earth itself knew danger was nearby. Even the horse sensed something. Moving with nervous steps and turning its ears at every faint sound, Ethan rode at the front with Nieli's brother seated behind him, holding on tightly. Nieli walked beside them, her eyes constantly scanning the surrounding land. She stayed close, ready to warn Ethan of any sign of the men who had frightened her brother. The sun climbed higher, warming the ground and painting the desert in bright light. But even under the sunlight, shadows seemed to follow them. "How long until we reach your ranch?" Nieli asked, her voice low. 2 hours if we keep this pace," Ethan replied. "We must hurry," she murmured. "The men. They were close." Ethan nodded. "I know. That's why we're taking the long path near the hills. It hides us better." Her brother clung tighter at the mention of the men. Ethan turned slightly and spoke softly to him. "You're safe now. Nothing will happen to you." The boy stared at Ethan with wide eyes, afraid, but starting to trust. They continued forward, careful and alert. Every rustle in the grass, every bird taking flight, every shifting shadow made their hearts jump. The land was too quiet. Even the breeze felt cautious. After some time, Nieli raised a hand, signaling Ethan to stop. He pulled the reins gently, and the horse halted. "What is it?" he asked. Nieli knelt on the ground, touching it lightly. Her sharp eyes followed a small line of disturbed sand. "Tracks," she whispered. "Fresh. Very fresh." Ethan dismounted and studied them too. "Not ours," he said quietly. Nieli nodded. "These men ride fast. They stop only when they think they found something." Her younger brother squeezed Nieli's hand tightly. "They looked angry when I hid," he whispered. Ethan looked toward the distant horizon. The men were somewhere behind them, moving across the land with determination. If they found tracks of a young Apache girl and a rancher together, they could easily draw wrong conclusions. "We have to keep moving," Ethan said gently, "but carefully." They continued with more caution now, avoiding open areas and sticking close to rocks and shrubs. The long path added time to their journey, but it kept them hidden. Halfway back, they reached a small dried-out creek bed. The shade was cool. Ethan suggested they rest for a few minutes to drink water and calm the horse. Nieli sat with her brother, giving him the last piece of dried fruit she had carried. Ethan filled the water pouch from their supply and handed it to her. "You're doing well," he said quietly. "You're strong." Nieli looked at him with a tired but warm expression. "I had to be strong," she said. "My brother needed me." "And you kept him alive," Ethan said. "That says a lot." She lowered her eyes shyly, touched by his words. For a moment, they sat in quiet understanding. Their worlds were different, but the worry, the fear, and the need to protect someone were the same. But the peaceful moment ended when the sound of distant hooves echoed across the land. Ethan stood at once. Nieli grabbed her brother's hand. "They're coming," she whispered. "Stay behind me," Ethan said firmly. The hoofbeats grew louder. Dust rose in the distance. 3 riders approached fast. Fast to be passing travelers. Ethan quickly led them behind a tall rock formation beside the creek bed. He whispered urgently, "Don't move. Don't make a sound." The horse stayed still, as if understanding the situation. The riders grew closer, their horses pounding hard against the dry ground. As they passed nearby, Ethan could hear fragments of their voices. One man shouted angrily, "She must be near. Find her before someone else does." Another replied, "If the girl has help, we'll see tracks soon enough." Nieli's brother shook with fear, and Nieli held him close, covering his ears softly to keep him calm. Ethan stood like a shield in front of them, not with weapons, not with threats. But with quiet courage, the riders slowed as they reached the creek bed. Studying the area, Ethan held his breath. One rider pointed toward the dust where they had walked minutes earlier. "Footprints," he said. Another cursed under his breath. "They're ahead, ride." Their horses ran off quickly, heading in the wrong direction away from the ranch. Ethan waited until the sound faded completely. Then he let out a slow breath. "That was close," he said. Nieli nodded. "Too close?" Her brother looked up at Ethan with fearful admiration. "You didn't even move," he whispered. Ethan gave him a small smile. Sometimes standing still is the safest thing. They continued their journey with renewed urgency. Every step felt heavier now. The danger was real, and they could not risk being found again. As the sun began to lower, the familiar outline of Ethan's ranch finally appeared on the horizon. The sight brought immediate relief. The cabin, the barn, the fence, all looked peaceful and welcoming. "We're almost there," Ethan said gently. Nayeli squeezed her brother's hand. "We made it," she whispered. But Ethan's calm expression hardened suddenly. Smoke rose from near the barn, not from a campfire. Not from cooking, from something that shouldn't burn. Ethan stopped the horse sharply. Nahal's heart raced. "Your ranch," she gasped. Ethan urged the horse forward, and they reached the ranch quickly. As they approached, Ethan saw what had happened. The barn door was ajar. Some tools were scattered on the ground. The smoke came from a small fire someone had tried to start near the fence, but abandoned quickly. "They were here," Ethan said quietly. Nayeli swallowed nervously. "Did they take anything?" Ethan checked the barn. The horses were still there, frightened but unharmed. "They didn't take the animals," Ethan said. "Maybe they were searching for Nayeli, searching for her brother, searching for answers they had no right to demand." Ethan walked back to the cabin, thinking quickly. "We have to stay inside," he said calmly. "I'll block the windows and doors. If they come back, I'll handle it." Nayeli touched his arm. "You shouldn't face them alone," she said softly. "I won't let anything happen to you or your brother," Ethan replied firmly. "But we need a plan." Nayeli looked at her brother, then at Ethan. Trust and fear mixed in her eyes. "What do we do?" "We stay quiet. Stay close. Stay ready." Night settled over the ranch. The stars appeared one by one across the dark sky, shining brightly above the desert. Inside the cabin, Ethan placed a lantern on the table, dimmed low. Nayeli and her brother sat close together. While Ethan kept watch near the window, hours passed with no sound except the crackle of fire and the soft wind outside, but deep into the night. The riders returned, soft hoofbeats, low voices, shadows moving across the yard. Nayeli held her brother tightly. Ethan signaled her to stay silent. He stepped near the door, calm but alert. A voice outside called out, "We know someone helped the girl. Come out." Ethan stayed silent. Another voice added, "We're not leaving until we search this place." Ethan took a deep breath and opened the door slowly, stepping outside alone. Nayeli watched through a small gap, her heart pounding. The men turned to face Ethan. "What do you want?" Ethan asked, his voice steady. "We're looking for an Apache girl," the leader said. "She's hiding somewhere. We saw tracks heading this way." Ethan kept his face calm. "No one here but me." The leader narrowed his eyes. "You're lying." Ethan didn't argue. He simply stood firm. His presence alone seemed to challenge them. The second rider moved toward the cabin. "We'll search ourselves." Ethan stepped in front of him. "You're not entering my home? This isn't your concern?" the leader snapped. "It's my land," Ethan replied calmly, "and my rules. No one enters without permission." "Move aside." Ethan didn't move. Silence fell, tense, heavy, sharp. The men exchanged glances. Something in Ethan's stance told them he wouldn't back down, not even against three men. Finally, the leader spat angrily. "Fine, but if we find out you're hiding them, we'll come back." They turned their horses and rode away. Leaving dust behind, Ethan waited until the sound faded before stepping back inside. Nayeli stood there, eyes filled with deep emotion. "You protected us," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "I told you I would." Her brother hugged Ethan's legs softly, grateful beyond words. Nayeli stepped closer. "You didn't have to do all this for us." "Yes, I did," Ethan said gently. "Because you asked me for one night of safety, and I agreed." Nahil's eyes softened, touched by his steady kindness. That night, they sat together near the fire. The danger was not gone, but they had faced it together, and something deeper had formed between them. Trust, respect, and a bond built from shared fear and shared hope. Nayeli watched the flames dance warmly. "Ethan," she said softly, "you gave me more than a place to stay. You gave me a safe world when mine had fallen apart." Ethan looked at her with quiet warmth. "You brought life back to this lonely ranch." Her brother had fallen asleep beside them, safe at last. The ranch was no longer silent. It had become a home for more than one person, and as the fire continued to glow, they all realized that their lives had changed forever, not through chance, but through courage, kindness, and one simple request that started it all: "Please let me stay tonight."